On Flirtations today, we'll meet Jessica Jordan Ping as we talk about dating with a disability and hopping on that self-love train, y'all. Jessica was born with a rare disability that affects 60 people worldwide. She has an incredible story. And yes, we'll be getting all into your dating questions, whether you have a visible or invisible disability. You wonder, how do I date? You got some questions running through your mind? This episode is for you. And then coming up later in the show, Ask the Flirt Coach is back, and we will meet Jordan, who's multi-dating, seeing a few guys, and has, well, two of them, and has a question. Benjamin, I'm more attracted to one than the other, but the other one I'm less attracted to, I have a stronger emotional connection with. What do I do? Stay tuned for that. You know I gotcha. All right, flirties, let's go. I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. Hello, my name is Benjamin. I'm the Flirt Coach and a gay Libra. Everyone has an inner flirt.
Hey, flirty.
Live, laugh, flirt.
Work the flirt.
Work the flirt. Delulu is the Salulu. Expert on the flirt.
Hey, flirty. There's always another flirt.
Everyone has an inner flirt. Get out of your head and into the flirt. Welcome to Flirtations, brand new episode with Jessica. I am so excited to bring you this topic today, all about dating with a disability and cultivating self-love. Jessica, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well. And I've just been really gearing up, excited for this conversation. So please, we've gotten to know each other a little bit in the DMs, back and forth, scheduling this, but there's still so much I don't know. So I'm very curious to hear more about you, your story. Yeah, please tell us.
Yeah. So my name's Jessica. I was born with a very, very rare form of disability. It's called child syndrome, and it affects about 60 people worldwide with skin and limb deficiencies. So, like I said, very rare, very little is known about it. So I kind of grew up being like this test dummy, so to speak. But it's been, I'm a big advocate for the fact that be disabled and proud, live your life, love yourself first, because I spent so much of my life not doing that. And it felt like wasted time. I look back, I feel like I needed to go through those trials and tribulations to get here today, but it just gives me more fire under my butt to be like, yes, everybody should just love themselves, because otherwise, what are we doing? We're on this big floating rock for God knows how long. So make the most of it.
Exactly. And I love opening the conversation with that, really turning some of those experiences that can be negative and having them be sources for motivation. So I'm curious to hear, and I think that's going to be so relatable, certainly to me and a lot of listeners as well, the flirties, how you were able to overcome some of those challenges and really sort of use that energy for positive mindset, right? For positive thinking.
I mean, I will be honest. I feel like I had a really, really great support system growing up. My parents, I give them so much credit for the person that I've turned into today, because they made me believe from a very young age, hey, if you want to do softball, go try out for softball. If you want to do volleyball, go do it. If you want to be on the dance team, go do it. And they just pushed me and put this fire under me from a very young age to just try. And even if you fail, that's still a win. And I think without that, I don't think I get to this place that I'm at today. I will just say that. However, there's a lot of societal factors as well that particularly I feel like for disabled people and just minorities in general, I would say, are constantly trying to put us into boxes. It's constantly trying to label us as one thing or another. And breaking out of that came from therapy. That came from going and doing the work and talking with a therapist and having somebody that wasn't related to me, isn't a friend of mine, wasn't a significant other, be like, it's okay that you take up space. That was revolutionary for me. And it just, I don't know, ever since that, one session, I've been continuing to go to therapy, continuing to work on my mental health. And I'm a big believer in mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So important. Yeah, we're big believers in mental health here on Flirtations as well. It's so important. All right, so I have some because I want to learn more about your story. I have some follow-up questions. One that's coming to mind, and this one came from Flirtstagram, is how you there's so much social media and traditional media out there that can misconstrue our sort of how we see disabled people, right? What they're capable of and what they're not. So how, if you're maybe lacking some support system, and I'm going to ask you more about that as well to build a support system, how can you start to sort of reframe your own thinking about what your abilities truly are?
That is such a great question, because that is something that I talk a lot about on my
Mm-hmm.
page, is the
Mm-hmm.
lack of representation that
Yes.
is out in traditional media for disabled people. And it's something that really affected me as a kid. I mean, I never saw disabled adults in any role. Like, take out like the TV actor, musician, all of that, like fancy stuff, if you will. I never
Mm-hmm.
saw a disabled teacher. I never saw a disabled doctor. I never saw a disabled mother or father.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, it was one of those things that I was constantly questioning. Oh, can I do this? Can I go to college? Can I have a career? Can I fall in love? I don't know. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing that helped me again was ultimately just putting myself out there. I know
Yeah.
you're a big proponent of just like
Oh yeah.
kind of putting yourself in uncomfortable positions sometimes. And I think that
Yes.
genuinely is the way to do it. Like, which is so hard to say, because if you feel like you maybe don't have a support system, or you feel like you don't have a visual of what you want, like you can't visualize it because it doesn't exist in your universe,
Mm-hmm.
then you kind of have to create it for yourself. You really do.
Yeah.
There are people out there who do far better than I do, I'm sure too, of like trying to be that representation as well. And like that you can follow on social media. That's one of the blessings of social media, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is how it is community driven. So there are ways to get that representation, but it's not necessarily going to be served to you on a silver platter. You're going to have to do some of the work.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's it's can be hard when you don't see yourself, your story represented in media. And I can relate to that myself, and I think a lot of queer people can relate to that. If you're a millennial like me, a perhaps elder millennial, you didn't really see those stories of queer love or gay love in media, on TV and in movies, or they followed stereotypes. They looked in like they had very specific sort of tropes and archetypes, and we didn't always see, and like I didn't always see myself represented. And so what do you do when you don't have sort of that path forward and you start to sort of create that yourself? It can be scary, it's challenging, but I think what you mentioned earlier about being willing to try and make a mistake or even fail, and having that be ultimately a part of your story but not define who you are. That's something I've had to learn. Easier said than done, but we can do it.
It's scary. It's scary. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. It's terrifying to like put yourself out there sometimes, but
Yeah.
it does pay off in one way or another, whether you fail or not.
So one of the themes on flirtation that seems to come up in a lot of conversations is the conversation or the theme around fear. And so we touched on it just now, and how you've been able to embrace that, work through it, and inevitably transform the fear. I like to think about fear as a transformation. So curious to hear your experience with fear.
Fear, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It is something that I feel like, I don't know if this has been your experience, but I think it gets old. As you get older, I think fear becomes less consuming to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's been my experience anyway, is as I've gotten older, things seem less do or die. Everything seems more, all right, we can chill about this. It doesn't have to be a right now thing. And I think that is the beauty with fear too, is you don't have to do everything right now. You can take baby steps to overcoming those fears that you have. And so if you want to like try something new, all right, sign up. That's the first step. Look at everything as a step. I'm a big checkbox girly.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to like make a plan and do it step by step. And I think that that is one of the biggest ways that I have been able to accomplish different tasks in my life, from everything from doing social media to even like my own dating life in some ways. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, this is a step. This is the
Mm-hmm.
first step in the process.
Yeah. Yeah. I love breaking things down. You have something you want to accomplish, a goal, whatever it may be in your dating life, or you want to flirt. You see someone, right, that you think is cute. So you can start with those baby steps. And it could be, like I talk about micro flirting a lot. So just getting those points of contact when you're out, just living your everyday life, how you're giving and receiving attention. It could be making some eye contact and then building your flirt confidence and inner confidence. From there, yeah, it's like, and I agree with you too. It's yeah, things are less sort of, there's almost less on the line in a way. It's sort of this mentality and moving towards this mentality of why not? Why not try? Why not me? What's the worst that could happen? I have this experience, like even starting this flirt cast, right? It's so much fear and it held me back for a while, but then it's like, all right, let me just have some conversations about it. Let me start listening to some podcasts with a little bit of a different ear and see how I want to structure mine. And then one episode at a time, here we go and here we are. It's
First of all, you're a great podcaster. Your voice is very soothing as we're doing this right now.
This is my radio voice.
It's it's great. It's wonderful. But I totally think that that's a great way to look at it, is like this why not mentality. I love that, because why not? You know, it's just everything. Nothing will happen if we don't take steps. Nothing will happen if you don't put yourself out there. And we're all the main characters of our own life. What's the worst that could happen? Somebody says no, somebody doesn't answer you. Like what's the worst thing?
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. And then also giving yourself, like wherever you're at today, giving yourself that permission and that patience and just practicing self-compassion to be like, because there was such a large period of my life where I was completely stuck in the fear, and I would see people doing the thing and taking the risk and really putting themselves out there and being like, why not me? Right? When is it my turn? When am I going to be able to do that? It took me a while, but I'm there and I still feel the fear all the time. I do so many of this scared, right? Being on social media, it's like, this isn't, being vulnerable and putting yourself out there is not easy, but it's so rewarding too. Whatever that thing is, or those things are that really help move you forward, just in your own path and in your own purpose.
I really think the more scared you are, the more you need to do it. That is like
Mm.
my hot take, because if you're really scared, that means it's something that you really care about, you're really passionate about. And if you don't do it, then isn't it scarier to not try? I just think it is at the end of the day.
Yeah. Have you seen those videos? They come up on social media often where it's a creator of some kind interviewing seniors, right? People usually in their 70s, 80s and beyond, like sort of what are your biggest regrets in life or your biggest life lessons on love? But the ones specific for regrets are like, it's that I didn't do the thing, right? I didn't try doing XYZ, whatever. Yeah. So like not having, maybe sometimes the fear of regret even could be motivation, perhaps.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's like FOMO in a way, the fear of missing out.
Yeah, I get FOMO all the time.
I do too.
Yeah.
I 100% do. But I think that can be taken down a negative route too. Everything can, of course.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's positive FOMO. I think that is a good way to kind of put yourself out of your comfort zone and either try new things or push yourself beyond your limits. I think people think that doing things scared is oftentimes like taking this way new thing and jumping into it. Sometimes it's just doing what you're already doing, but doing it differently or a little bit more intensely or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Being adaptable.
Yes.
And using, I like this, bringing FOMO into the conversation. And then the thing I have to avoid with FOMO is the comparisonitis of it all, right? Having it be like, oh, right, they're doing the thing. I can't do what they're doing. And so having it be more so for the motivation in a sense, kind of using it in that way versus having it be something that reinforces the fear or maybe feelings of lacking self-worth, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
absolutely. I think comparison is the root of all evil. It is very, very dangerous. And it's a game that I played as like in my youth a lot in high school,
Yeah.
especially in college. College Jess was a completely different being.
Mm-hmm.
She lived in the fear. She was comparing herself to everybody. It was not a good time.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, something I've learned as a disabled person with such a rare disease, I think it strikes me, I will never fit in. You know, I will never be that mold. I will never be somebody that fits into what society thinks
Mm.
is perfect or amazing or beautiful or whatever. Like I will not do that. And so I think in understanding that, and you don't need to have a rare disease to do that. Everybody's unique. Everybody is different. Nobody
Yeah.
should fit into the box because that's boring at the end of the day. We all want to be our own
Yep.
selves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the danger with comparison, is that we're limiting ourselves by comparing ourselves to somebody else. No, we don't want to be them. We want to be ourselves. That's
Mm-hmm.
where the real fruitful nature of humanity comes out.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I want to hear more what you have to say on that, sort of breaking this process of building self-love down a little bit. I want to come back and revisit your support system and some advice, some words you may have for the flirties listening about how they can start to build a support system for themselves.
Yeah. I think like I said at the beginning, I'm very lucky. I was born
Mm-hmm.
into a family that has been very supportive. Because I know obviously there's so many people that don't have that luxury, and I am lucky enough to have that. However, I'm going to have maybe a hot take here.
Yes.
I genuinely think that the best support system you can build is within yourself. And that sounds probably so like cliche or like stitch it on a pillow sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I've been through a lot of heartache and a lot of, friends walking out of my life, family members that I'm not as close to anymore, a lot of drama within almost every aspect of relationship. And I think the one thing that I keep coming back to in my therapy sessions and in my own life is like, I have to rely on me. And becoming your own support system is such a power move, because once you do that, once you know that, all right, if everything goes amiss, I still have me. That is when you're in your strongest element. Obviously, it is helpful to have other people in your corner as well. And I think that comes from showing up as yourself, which also comes from being your own support system a bit. But I do think the best support system is yourself. I do.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, yeah, that's a universal truth, and I really love so much what you said about cultivating authenticity, and how it's really building that within yourself and being just a genuine, which can be so hard, right? If you're in the FOMO, the comparisonitis, like you're hiding yourself in some ways, but ultimately just being as truthful to you as you can be then allows other people to see you and develop those pure connections, and your support system is going to grow out of that in many ways, being able to ask for help and put yourself out there.
Yes, and I think something that is important to mention within that as well is as humans, like we are meant to grow. We're meant to like adapt and change over time. And our support system doesn't have to be the same from age like 16 to age 60.
True.
It's normal for that to evolve over time. And that doesn't mean that you have to have hate or anger towards people that like fall out of your life. I think people come into our lives for different reasons. And, you know, there's a lot of people that I'm not as close with anymore for various reasons. And I can still look at the things that they brought to me in my life and the support they gave me at a certain time. Whether it be a week of support or like a year of support or multiple years, doesn't matter. And I think just looking at humanity as like this community of that is a lot safer than relying and putting all your eggs into like 3 or 4 people and being like, yes, these are my ride or dies. Like, okay, yeah, they can be for right now. And that's great. And I like, that's good that you have that, but they might not always be there. And that might not even be a you problem. That might not be a them problem. It might just be a life problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's going to be so helpful. And something else I want to offer here is, because it's like, for me, it's been so hard to ask for help throughout my life and ask for support. It's just like, you know, someone like I'm going out of town for a night or something. It's like, oh, will you like come feed my cat for me? You know, like I just want to be so hyper independent and so resourceful. And kind of justify in my mind sometimes, well, I don't have anything to offer other people too. So it's sort of this tit for tat, like I won't ask for help because I can't offer that in return. And so to the person that may be thinking that in their mind, thinking like, oh, well, like what could I do for them kind of thing. What do you got? Let's set them straight today.
That's such a great topic because I know specifically in the disability community, that's a huge thing. It's like, oh, I feel like a burden, like asking for help all the time, blah, blah, blah. It's so heavy. But like, okay, maybe you feel like you can't do something physically in return for them, or you feel like scared to ask, you feel scared to ask for help for X, Y, and Z reason. You feel like you're being a bother or whatever it may be. You do so much for these other people just by being yourself.
Yes.
If they are true friends, if they are people that genuinely care about you, then just you being in their life, existing as yourself and showing up for them when they need it, whether they're asking for help or not, whether you're offering it or not, you have to trust. And this is a trust thing, and that's hard. You have to trust that you are enough just as you are. And that's hard. That's a hard thing. That comes from within.
It does come within. You're being your own support system, right? Going back to that. Applause sound effect. I love that answer. All right. I want to ask you at least one more question, and then then I got some dating focused questions. It's coming, but I wanted to really learn more about you and your story. And one thing that I get from your social media is your humor. Like if you're not following, like you have such a good sense of humor. And so how you've been has that come naturally to you, or is that something you've developed over time?
When I was a kid, it comes from a dark place.
I mean, it usually does. I can relate.
When I was a kid and like hating myself, I would use humor as a way to like deflect. I've always liked performing. I think I need to start there, actually. I've always liked performing. I was always a theater kid. I did dance for 13 years as a kid, like being on stage, having a little spotlight, loved it forever.
Yes. I love that, yeah.
But because I was different, I grew up in a really small town, and I was the only person that looked different in my small town. I would use humor as a way to be like, oh, but I can fit in with everybody else. I'm using humor as a way to make myself less disabled is like how I would kind of think about it.
Yeah, I understand that.
And so now I don't try to make myself less disabled through it. That's not what I'm doing. I'm trying to meet people where they're at. A lot of what I do is advocate and try to educate and be representation all at the same time in one little package. And how can you reach people who may not have a whole lot of experience with disability, who may not have any education, may not have anybody in their lives who is disabled. How can you reach them in a way that's going to call out to them? And humor is a universal language. We all can kind of pick up on like little sassy remarks or little like bits of sarcasm here and there, I feel like. So that's kind of what I try to do. It does come naturally to an extent, but I do think it comes from a dark place.
Yeah. I can relate as well. And what I was thinking, and I'm glad, and you said it, is that humor is a language in many ways. It's a way to communicate. It's a way to connect and relate. And especially, on social media where you've got, your people's attention, right? You're scrolling. And so something that's going to just be relatable, meet them where they're at, kind of meet them where their level of awareness is. Maybe they're not familiar, or they haven't seen people with disabilities in their own life, right? They haven't had those friends and family members. And so being able to, have humor be a language, and it's fun to laugh too.
Absolutely. And I think that's a big part of it is what, like, laughing is fun. Being funny is fun. One of my dreams, I haven't been to one of these classes, but because I also teach yoga, I want to do a flirt yoga class. Right? You have to.
I have to. That's okay. Manifesting right now. It has to. But like a little bit of the fear, right? Like, oh, what if people don't laugh, right? What if so many questions? How long is it? What do I do? Do I just tell dad jokes, or like what are we doing? Are we like tickling our funny bone or something? I don't know. I have so many questions, but all right, that's my flirt yoga one day.
One step at a time. Just
oh my gosh,
one step at a time.
You're so right. Talking about it, that was coaching me. I appreciate it. Lord, I needed to. All right. Okay. I want to, I think, ask one more question. We've talked a lot about, and I have this one here from Flirtstagram. The question is about the challenges you faced regarding self-love and self-acceptance. I think we've talked a lot about those challenges, fear really coming up. But when I kind of formally ask that question here before we transition over to talking about some dating stuff.
I think some of the biggest challenges I've faced is just, I feel like sometimes you can take several steps in the right direction within, and society just isn't there yet in a lot of ways. And it's always trying to pull you back, and you just always have to kind of be on top of it. It's not like you ever get a day off, whether it's online or in my personal life, at a doctor's office or at a job interview or in my dating life. It's like I'm constantly advocating for my right to exist. And sometimes that does get overwhelming. And I find that to be a really big challenge, that I have to show up in a certain way every day in order to be able to tackle that. And that is hard. That can be hard. There's some days where you just want to succumb to like the sadness or the frustration.
Absolutely. I can absolutely relate to that as well. I'm thinking of, so much of what we talked about today. And this one quote that comes from my best friend's Rita, who like one of her life mantras is left foot, right foot, just keep marching, right? Sometimes you may be marching in place, but you're still marching, right? You're still going, taking those small steps, practicing lots of self-love, compassion, patience, and taking up space because you have the right to exist as you. Just always reinforcing that belief.
I love that like visual as well. My therapist says something similar without the visual. She always is just like, because I always say to her, I'm like, I feel like I'm going backwards. I feel like I'm reverting back to how I was. She's like, well, you can't, because you've done the work. Like you might not be where you want to be right now. You might be going through a rough patch right now, but you're not where you were 2 years ago, because you can't undo everything that you've done.
That is, dang it. That's honestly the mindset shift I needed today. Thank you.
Yay!
Yes. So good. All right. And as this is flirtations, of course, we're going to be talking some dating stuff. All right. So I've got some questions for you. The first one is, How do you navigate conversations about dating with a disability with potential partners? We checked or talked a little bit earlier about dating online. And so maybe like what kind of pictures you put up, things you put in your bio. Yeah, navigating those initial conversations with potential partners.
That is a great question. I will just walk you through my dating
Yes.
profile, I
Let's
guess.
do it, please.
Yes. It's deactivated right now. I'll walk you through
Same.
it's a time.
Yeah.
Typically, I always try to start my profile with a full body shot. I don't want to hide anything. I'm not here to catfish anybody. I want people that like know what they're getting into. That's a really big deal to me. I often try to make one sort of pun situation in the, I don't know if it's Hinge. I guess it's like
Yeah. Bring in some
prompts.
humor.
Yeah, bring some
Uh-huh.
humor. If it's another one, sometimes it's like a bio. Just try to bring something. I know I've put on one of them before a video prompt that was me zooming into an accessibility like door opening button, and I was like, accessibility, we stan. And
Yeah.
I think the like prompt for it was, if loving this is wrong, I don't want to be right, or something like that. That gets a lot of like traction too. People are like, that's funny. I'm like, thank you.
That's funny. Yeah.
I think there's like a prompt on one of the apps that's like, what do you want to see more of in the world, or something like that. And I'm like, ramps. Just like
Oh my God.
something to just be so blatantly obvious. Like, hey, disability's on the table right now.
Yeah.
Like, we can't get away from it.
All right. Those are,
But I do
great.
want to say this though. I do want to say, I don't think that people need to be bluntly obvious about their disability that they have. I don't think you need like a diagnosis on your profile. And I don't think you need to like be like, I can't do this, this, and this. Like, let's not go in with negatives. Let's focus on, keeping it lighthearted and easy.
Yeah.
People will earn that information from you as you start to date them. You don't need to be that vulnerable with every single person that comes onto your profile.
Oh my God. So good. I literally have nothing to add. Yeah, so good about not you don't have to completely overshare and put everything out there on a profile. Represent yourself, be you, show some personality, and then just like you said, that access to you and your story and your information, your vulnerabilities is earned, right? Like you gotta work for that, right? That's just that's what this is. So a follow-up question here is for the person that maybe doesn't have a visible disability, but more so an invisible disability. So on a dating app profile, it's not, you can't see it, but it's there. So what would you say to that person?
That is such a great question. I think there's ways that you can use humor with it as well. I have a bit of an invisible disability myself, related to my stomach, and I don't mention it on my dating profile, but like I'm trying to envision, like I would probably list like trigger foods for me or something like that in some capacity with one of the prompts, or try to be like just another girly with stomach problems, because like that's like a joke on TikTok or whatever.
Yes.
I don't know, just trying to make a lighthearted joke about it if you feel like it's something you need to share. Honestly, again, if it's something that you don't necessarily feel like you have to share, I don't think you have to until you're having that conversation on dates like 2 or 3 even, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's not something you need to put necessarily right out there on your dating profile, or maybe you want to bring it up with a little bit of humor. You want to mention it. I think it's like you have to date and do the thing that's right for you, but also it's totally okay to leave an invisible disability off your profile, and bring that up, on date 2 or 3 as you're truly getting to know someone and seeing like, okay, is this someone that may be in my life potentially long term, at least moving into a second month, a third month. Yeah, having that be part of your story that is told over time, I think that can be a great strategy as well. I want to ask the question here now. Um, is what do you do? So now we've sort of gotten off the apps, sort of we're going through the dating journey, or maybe you're still on the apps having those few conversations, perhaps even on the first date, and you have a date that just has so many questions, right? Like that seems like how do you deal with the person that may have lack of awareness or misunderstanding or just some anxiety about like sort of what to talk about or sort of yeah, how to be helpful or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had these situations. It is uncomfortable for both parties involved, I feel like, when this
Mm-hmm.
happens, because it makes me uncomfortable because now I feel like I have to play this educator role
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I think beyond that, you can kind of tell the intent behind the question, is especially if it's
Mm,
on a date. If it's over text, it's a lot harder to understand the context of what people are doing. And honestly, if it's over text, I'm much less likely to respond, just period. Like if it
mm-hmm.
starts getting weird, I
Mm,
I just always assume that it's going to go down a sexual rabbit hole and
mhm.
I just
Yeah.
gotta leave it be.
Yeah.
But if it's on a date and people are like asking questions, that is easier for me to be like, okay, what's their tone? Where is this going? How can I answer it in a way that prevents it from going in a place that makes me uncomfortable?
Yeah.
But I would say more so than not, my experience, and I don't know if this is because I am like a cis woman, like pretty much just dating men.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's like a gender thing there, but I feel like most of the time I'm asking the guy if they have any
Ah.
questions for me about my disability. Like I feel like
Ah.
I have to break that ice.
Okay.
And I don't hate doing that either. I want to be very clear. I kind of actually think that that's a sign of respect that they're waiting for me to bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that has been more of my experience. And the ones that are like word vomiting questions of like,
Yeah.
oh, what about this? I'm like a little jarred by. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Let's unpack
Sure.
why that is so concerning to you right
Mm-hmm.
now.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really, really helpful. And there's a couple strategies that came out of that. One being you taking the initiative and being the advocate to be like, hey, do you have any questions? Sort of going ahead and just putting that out there could be one way to do it. And I wanted to ask this because I was talking with a friend before recording that has Ehlers-Danlos, which is more of an invisible disability that can affect so many things, energy, yeah, lots and lots of things, pain, and sometimes has fallen into the role of, like you said, educator, right? The person that is just like, that's all they sort of want to know about. They have lots of questions. And so maybe redirecting the conversation can be a way to do it. Establishing that boundary for yourself can be something else you can do. And seeing like, it's ultimately about seeing the person, right? Like that's what we're going for. And so if you have a tendency, maybe you've been on dates or like you're with someone disabled or you're that type of dater, get to know the person and focus on them.
Well, I talk about this a lot about strangers will come up to me and ask very personal
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
And, if somebody's doing that on a first date, it's a similar vibe. We're strangers. You don't know me. I don't know you. We're trying to get to know each other. So if you're asking like these wild, off the cuff sort of things, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm putting you kind of in a similar basket to these people that come up to me at the grocery store and they're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that is similar, but genuinely, like for me, I think it's important as the disabled person in a way that I do take on some of the responsibility to put it out there that it's okay to ask questions. And that's why, like on a second or third date, depending on the trajectory and like how things are going, I will be the one to be like, hey, do you have any questions about it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And really, yeah, there's a difference between looking to make a connection and asking questions to develop and strengthen the connection versus being just outright intrusive and sort of curious for your, like out of your own, like just what kind of thoughts you're having. And then allowing the person with the disability to feel empowered to tell their story. So giving them that space and encouragement and support and listening and be like, hey, like I'm here. And let them
Yes.
tell their own story.
And I mean, that goes for a lot of different, like that's not just disability specific in dating, I feel like as well. It can be with anything and everything. And I think that, I don't know, it can be related to so many different aspects of the dating experience. It's just like go in with an open mind and let people kind of tell their story and listen.
Yes. Listening is the biggest part, with consideration, right? Being able to really hear them without your own preconceived notions and biases and judgments and criticisms, but just consider and listen and hear what they're saying. So important.
So important.
Yeah.
Literally the bare minimum.
I know. It should be, but we lack the listening skills out there these days for so many of us. Yeah. If you're dating, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. All right. I'm curious now, what are some misconceptions or stereotypes that you may encounter out there dating?
Ooh. I mean, I get unfortunately a lot of like sexual questions. I feel like there's a lot of that to navigate through as a disabled person. And I feel like specifically as an amputee, there's a lot of interesting people that have questions about what you can and cannot do. So I feel like navigating that has always been difficult for me. I think there's a lot of people who assume that I'm not smart. And that's a big one for me. And that like isn't just in my dating life. I want to be so clear. That's like across the board, something I've dealt with since I was a kid. But people assume that I'm going to kind of be like not very intelligent. And then they are surprised when I show up and I'm like, I don't know, have an education and have done all these things. And I'm like, oh, okay. So this is good. And I hate that, because to me, I'm like, okay, so you only matched with me for something not related to my personality then at that point. Like that has to do with my looks in some capacity. And that already feels like a surface level situation. And I'm really turned off by that really, really fast.
Yeah. And you should be, right? Getting like, it's a practice of, being turned off by those disrespectful and just bad dating behaviors. It's like, not feeling like you in any way have to endure that or put up with it or come back with follow-up questions. No, like you can put up that boundary, which is for yourself, and be like, this is not for me. No, thank you. Ugh. All right. So I want to ask one more dating question here, and that is, which I think is going to be universal, but the fear, or more so when someone says no or rejection, something like that, which is, we've all experienced that, but I really want to hear your perspective and your take on, that when that situation comes up.
You know, this is probably the second question I get asked the most on my page about dating specifically, is how do you handle rejection? How do you deal with that? And you know, I'll just say I spent several years in a relationship that didn't serve me. It brought me down. It didn't lift me up. And that specific situation has taught me moving forward how relationships should be enhancements to your life. And if they're not, it is not for you. It is not a benefit to you. And rejection is not personal. I have been on several dates. I've been in a bit of a dating era for the last like 6 months, I would say.
Yes. Love to hear it. Okay. Well, high highs and low lows.
Of course. So many stories, but within that, I have found it very empowering to be like, hey, you know what? I can reject people too. And 100%. I think that is something that people forget. They get so worried about, okay, well, I need to find my person right now and I need to do this. And like, I want a relationship. And so this person who I find mostly attractive and like checks off a couple of these boxes, they're my person. And the minute that they reject me, I'm going to lose my mind. Or why don't we focus on, do you like them? What boxes are they ticking off? Are they actually the most important boxes? Because if they're not the most important boxes, you're just wasting everybody's time.
You were speaking my language. Yes.
We are so aligned in this because I am so passionate about like, I don't know, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be, you know, if you're going to get rejected. If you're dating, you're going to get rejected.
Yes.
And like, you should actually crave rejection in some ways. And let me explain that, because that sounds probably a little wild. You should crave it because that is teaching you more of what you don't want. It's getting you closer to your alignment. It's getting you closer to your person. The more you get rejected, first of all, let's talk about the fact that rejection is a form of communication. And sometimes that is the bare minimum. Instead of getting strung along for months and months. Yeah. Been there, done that.
I have never heard that before. New video idea, permission, please. Video rejection is communication.
Do it. Yeah. I approve. Because it's a form of communication, and like, you can't fault people for communicating, assuming they're doing it respectfully.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think ultimately rejection is just redirection. I feel like that's the quote that gets shared on social media all the time. Like, rejection is redirection.
We've heard that. Yeah. But it doesn't often get broken down and really kind of put into these tangible steps and what that looks like. And I think you articulated it so beautifully just now, and remembering that you get to be the chooser in your own dating life too. And it's right. Rejection. It's not going to be fun when you have to do it, but bringing you back into an alignment with yourself, moving on from connections, dates, relationships that aren't serving you, and then being open to the next flirt when you're ready.
Yes. And I think it's also like, we want to focus on us getting rejected a lot of the times. But, you know, when you step into that rejector role, that's hard too. That's not a fun place to be. I personally I think I hate that more. I hate being the one that's like, you know, this is not what I want it to be. Yeah. So I'm going to dip, but thank you. It's just uncomfortable. Nobody wants to be the one to disappoint somebody else.
It's true. That's true. But it's just like you said, that rejection is a form of communication, and communicating where you're at and that it's just not working is going to be of service to both people ultimately. Yeah.
100%.
All right. We are rounding out the conversation. This has gone by so quickly, but I want to ask one more question just about you and how you envision the disabled community evolving. And I want to hear a little bit more about your advocacy efforts and what people can do to support you.
Oh, thank you. You know, something that I feel like the disability community really struggles with, it feels like we are shouting into a void a lot of the time. And I'm sure other groups can kind of relate to that. And I think, you know, it can be exhausting. It feels like we're kind of just talking to ourselves. Like, we're all on board. We're all like kind of rallying for the same things, but are people that are not a part of our community actually paying attention? That, I think, is the most exhausting part of being an advocate for anything. It's getting people to care and getting people to understand. I think a lot of people, especially in the United States, because I've lived in the UK and in the US throughout my life, different times, a lot of people in the US are like, oh, well, the Americans with Disabilities Act exists. The ADA was signed in 1990, and so we're good. Disability is checkboxed. We don't need to care about it anymore. When in reality, that was like the bare minimum of standards, and there's so much more work to be done. And so I think for me and the community at large, I feel confident saying like, we still need some help. And so I think the best way that people can be supportive of the disability community is to, consume content, do research, educate yourself, try to take time to learn, empathize, understand the disabled perspective, try to unlearn some of those stereotypes that are out there about a variety of different things. Just that's the best way that you can be helpful, I feel like, at this stage, is just to, take it upon yourself to learn, whether that be following content creators or reading books. There's so many great books out there, if that's more your speed. There's a lot of ways that you can support disabled people.
Yeah, I think that's such a beautiful response. And seeing, I don't know if we've mentioned the word ableism this whole episode. We've definitely touched on it and talked about it. But seeing all the ways that is just in your everyday life and being open to how you can be supportive and educating yourself. Like, I know for me, like I used to be a planner, a city planner for the longest time. And something I really didn't pay attention to a whole lot were curb cuts, right? Not everyone disabled is in a wheelchair or wheelbound, but those that are and rely on public transportation, you don't have a curb cut. You don't have one of those ramps that helps you cross the street. You don't have the proper lighting and the proper signals. If someone is blind, making sure that they have aural signals, right? There's audio as well when it beeps, cross the street. So being aware of all those things, and it could be one of those things that, just calling the city and be like, hey, this intersection needs some improvement, right? So taking it upon yourself to just be helpful, right? Be selfless and just be aware of your own ableism in many ways.
For sure. And like, there are little things you can do that, obviously it would be great if we could all like improve foundational accessibility and all that. But I think the one thing is with language. That's an easy universal thing that people, I feel like, can learn, is to use proper language. Call disabled people disabled. That's not a bad word. That's not a scary word. It just is how it is. And I think I would love to leave your listeners with the thought of like, disability is the one minority group that you can enter into anytime without notice.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You can become disabled tomorrow. Your family or friend could become disabled tomorrow, and suddenly like your life is impacted. That is one reason. There are lots of reasons. Just the human nature of wanting to make sure people are included, it should be enough. But if it's not, just know, like, at some point, if you live long enough, you will probably be disabled or be affected by disability at some point in time. Yeah. Wouldn't it be great if the world was more accessible and inclusive before that happens to you?
Yeah. Okay, chills. That is 100% true. And please tell the Flirties, I'll have everything linked in the show notes, but how can they follow you, find you, support you?
Yes. My blog and like social media is The Rolling Explorer. So you can find me there. I will do more of this sort of chatter, hopefully in a funnier way and less preachy, but yes, it'll be there.
All right. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jessica, for joining me for this episode of Flirtations. We'll be continuing the conversation on smell. Oh my gosh, on swell with one more question. With that, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. You're such a delight. So thank you.
Of course. What do you think, Flirties? I had so much fun recording this conversation with Jessica. She's absolutely incredible, and I hope you got tons of value out of that conversation. But don't go anywhere. This episode is not done just yet. Coming up next on Ask the Flirt Coach, we'll be meeting Jordan, who has a question. Benjamin, I'm dating a couple of guys, but how do I not compare them to one another? Or how do I know which one is the better match for me, or if either of them even are? Let's meet Jordan. Welcome to Ask the Flirt Coach. On Flirtation, we have Jordan. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing absolutely splendid. Now that you're here, I'm so glad you're a part of the show today. And we're going to go through, go ahead and share with the Flirties what is on your mind. What question you got?
So keeping guys separate and dating. Not even just guys, just people.
Okay.
I was going out with two guys and I was comparing them to each other, which is not like the best.
Okay.
I was doing that in my head, and then I went with one, and
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go on a third date.
Okay.
So he was like, this happened a week and a half since the
Mm-hmm.
second. And then so I said, I want to go on a third date. He said, I'm not really interested and keep going on dates forever. And
Okay.
yeah. So
Okay.
I was like, I don't know what you mean by that. Because I would not invite him over to my house.
Right.
'Cause he
Okay.
invited.
Okay. Well, we can go ahead. All right. We're gonna come back to that for sure. I have some I have some thoughts. But it sounds like you are employing the multi-dating strategy. So curious here, what type of relationship are you looking for? Are we casually dating? Are you looking for more of a monogamous relationship? Do you are sort of getting an idea of what your dating goals are?
I'm looking for more monogamous,
Okay.
casually dating at first,
Mm-hmm.
but something that gets serious.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to jump the gun, jump serious right away.
Okay. Okay. So it sounds like taking a more of a slow burn approach, allowing a connection to build over time. I think that's a good strategy. And you're nodding your head yes here as well. Okay. So um where are you meeting your dates? Are we online, connecting in person, hybrid? What's happening?
Online.
Yes. I mean, I'm right there with you. So many of us are dating online. There's this frustration and kind of yeah, just like wishing it were not quite the experience it was, yet we continue to be there because it's a viable way to meet people.
I don't really have any other ways to meet people.
Yeah, all good. Online dating is a great strategy. And so you're making some matches, which is good. So that part is going well. How are you? We're going to come back to this dude in a moment, but how are you feeling with the quality or about the quality of your matches?
Not great.
Not great. Okay. What's happening in your profile, or what is attracting you to swipe on someone?
So I'm really big into fitness.
Okay.
So long story short, I was in a car crash. I had a brain injury.
Okay.
So I was in a coma for 2 months, hospital for 5.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm very big into like health and like not even health, but just fitness. Like
Yeah.
I was paralyzed on my right side of my
Oh my
body.
gosh. Uh-huh.
And I learned how to walk again. So I'm very big into like physical fitness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never in that place again.
Okay.
It's like I had that's a big factor for me.
Mm-hmm.
Being smart,
Mm-hmm.
do my master's degree. I try to find someone who's got both those characteristics that I look for,
Okay.
same things. And
Yeah.
so
I think that's, oh my gosh. Well, that's, how long ago did your accident happen?
3 years.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, you're definitely in a growth mindset, right? Not someone that is into giving up or quitting, but very much be like continuing to be you and just get better and improve every day. And so you're looking for someone that's going to match that energy and have those same qualities. Growth mindset, someone that is valuing their intellect or very at least curious about learning new things. Two fantastic qualities to look for. Someone that's going to prioritize their health. Love it. And yeah, someone that is going to be able to, I think, also empathize and understand with your story and hold the space for that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so we got some great things happening, and at least in terms of like the partners you're looking for. What's happening in your profile, Jordan? What's
Should I get my phone? Should I look at my profile?
you can hold off on that from the top of your head. Sort of, are you mentioning some of these things in your profile?
Fitness, yes.
Okay,
I'm getting my master's degree.
cool, love it.
Just kind of normal stuff. My Instagram's linked.
Okay,
I'm on Spotify, so
cool.
that's
Yeah,
so.
that sounds good. Do you have anything in there about not necessarily your story and your accident, but just who you are as someone that is a fighter, someone that is courageous, someone that really, right, like goes after it. Are you putting some of those descriptors in your profile?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd love to see some of those in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Very much allowing your profile to be a screener for you so we can attract some of those higher quality matches. And now I'm curious. So who's doing some of the initiation as far as getting off the apps, perhaps going on dates? Who's taking the lead on that?
Unfortunately, it's me.
Oh, okay.
I don't like that. Don't like that at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you prefer?
Yes, I would
Yeah.
prefer. Mhm.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's just I'm very, very strong person.
Mm-hmm.
If I want something, I'm going to say what I want. I
Okay.
don't hide behind my feelings
Okay.
very much. I'm very upfront.
Okay. So are you, maybe as an example on a first date coming right out and saying, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I want, or are you allowing that to sort of evolve and come out over time?
I do not really say on the first date. Usually
Okay.
talk about it like before we even meet. Like, what are you looking for? Like, what do you want? Because like I use Bumble and I use Hinge.
Okay.
Like you can put I'm looking for something serious, I think it says. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of guys put open to no, looking for short term, open for long.
I see that all the time. Yeah. I see that all the time myself. Okay, I'm going to come back to that in a second. I'm curious. I want to learn more from you now about the strategy of multi dating and entertaining multiple dates connections at the same time. How how have you felt about that experience?
So it was good.
Okay.
So I went on a date with these two guys and I liked them both a lot. But like I just felt more physical attraction to one.
Okay.
And I know attraction can grow.
Yeah.
So and it had been about 2 months
Mhm.
and he travels a lot. So
Okay.
very intermittent and he's
Okay.
not from the States either. So that's
He's not planning dates?
he's not from the States.
Oh, from the States, from the States. Okay, I'm with you.
So he is here for school.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's on a school visa right now. So
Okay. So it sounds like, I mean, he's not available to actually show up and go on dates. So I'm hearing a little bit of a mismatch between your dating goals and matching with someone. This is the hot one that you thought was
not that one.
this is not the hot one. Okay. So what's this guy doing for you?
He's just so kind.
Okay. Sometimes they are. Let's go back to the hot one.
He's very emotionally mature, especially for where he was raised. It's shocking.
Okay. Okay. Um, but he can that can be true, but he's also not showing up in those ways that are involving emotional maturity with consistency. And it might just be his schedule and just where he is at in his life. It could truly be a timing thing. But going back to the hot one that you were attracted to, that was right, not initiating, but very much wanting to come over. Well, this is someone that is very clearly interested in one thing and one thing only, which also, you get to date in a way and do whatever you want, but this is not someone that is going to show up for you long term.
It's great. Absolutely. That's fine. And I
Hmm.
told him I want something that can get serious. Like, I don't want just sex. Like,
Right.
that's what he said. And then he insinuated that I was leading him on like 12 dates, which we've only been on two. So,
Yeah, he sounds like he's gaslighting you, very, very much so. Yeah. So not a high quality. We're not going to see him anymore, right?
yeah.
No, he's done.
And he was so smart though. too, and he went to an Ivy League.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he could. Yeah, he could be. They could be smart and have gone to an Ivy League and still be
Gaslighters.
horrible. Yeah, and horrible matches.
That's where they learn gaslighting.
Yeah. All right. So it sounds like, all right, Hawkeye gone. The other guy that the physical attraction maybe is not as strong, but how are you feeling? Are we continuing to talk to him?
So I told him I didn't know if I could do it anymore.
Okay.
So when was this? This was about a month ago, and he was shot.
Mm-hmm.
Felt bad, but like just didn't really know what to say. Like, because I don't want to hurt his feelings.
Sure, sure. I understand. Yeah. But this is inevitably a part of dating, and it can be difficult to be in that. I don't like the word rejection, but be in that rejector role. It's just more so a misalignment of personalities or values or dating and relationship goals of location. And this can all be true, but it still be a connection that it is what it is. And so, yeah, being able to express yourself in that way. But I'm glad that you did.
And he wants to be friends.
Okay.
I told him at the beginning I don't know if I can be friends. Someone I used to see opens up a lot of problems.
Yeah. Knowing yourself. Good boundaries, Jordan, honestly.
Then I said, okay, like I'll be friends.
Mm-hmm.
And friends is good, but like now he's just friendship ghosting me now. Like, so where's my friend?
Yeah, it sounds like what he may have been doing, and this is something all daters will do, and particularly guys, is they will soften the rejection for themselves by offering you, hey, I understand, yeah, it's not working out, but let's be friends. And now they get to be the one to reject you. Like,
Makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, I think that what's maybe happening here. And also, you want a friend that you can
Depend on.
see, yeah, and depend on. So ultimately, it sounds like both of these dudes are out of the picture. We're back to square one, but a beautiful place to be. As I think, how do you feel about making some of those changes with your dating profile?
Good.
Yeah.
I feel like that scares people off. So I'm technically disabled.
Okay.
I have a brain injury. I have a traumatic brain injury, TBI.
Mm-hmm.
I am on disability. I work though. I go to school.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just don't really put that on your dating profile because that's
Sure.
such a hot topic.
Yes. I
You
agree.
disabled. Like
Yeah. And I'm
that's
so yeah, I'm really proud of you and so glad you're sharing this with me now and with the flirties. Okay, I want to make sure I helped you and just supported you, offered as much value as I possibly could. How are you feeling now at this point in the call with your dating strategy and with multi-dating more moving forward?
how do you not like measure them up to each other?
Mm,
I don't like to make people feel like they're competing with anyone. Does that make
yeah.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you not compare them to one another? Absolutely. So what you're doing is not necessarily making a pros cons list like this person has these qualities and traits. These person has these over here, but more so thinking of it in terms of alignment and attraction and energy and the connection. And so when I'm spending time with someone, bringing it back to yourself, you being the decider, you being the chooser, does this person align with what I'm looking for? How are they showing up for me? Really looking at their actions, which signify interest and intention, and then looking at those qualities and traits as you get to know them beyond that. So, stepping away from this one's hot, this one's maybe not, but how are they ultimately showing up for you, building the connection, and then seeing if that spark, that chemistry is really there and being within your own choosing energy, your own attractor energy, and letting that help you guide you on your way. How does that answer resonate with you, as we say in the coaching world?
I feel that it's resonating with me.
Yes. Hand on the heart. I love it. Is there anything else I can help or support you with today?
I don't know.
That's what's that?
Do you have any more questions for me?
I don't think so. We ran through all my questions. I'm just glancing off at my notes here. I think we really teased out the situation, and I hope you're feeling in a good place now, just moving forward in your dating life. And of course, I'll be here if anything else comes up. You just let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jordan. Thanks for being on the show today.
Of course.
All right, flirties, that's a wrap for this episode of Flirtations. Thank you so much to our guests, Jessica, Jordan, Ping, and Jordan, for being a part of the show today. Thank you for listening, and please support the Flirtcast, liking, subscribing, sharing, rating, reviewing, you know, the things. And then we can continue the conversation over on Swell. There is Flirt Talk. There is Flirtstagram. There is FlirtTube. There is my Flirt Friday email list where I send out a newsletter every other week for the most part. If you want to join it, totally free. There's the Flirt Coach offers, all linked in the show notes. If you haven't taken the Flirt Styles quiz, that's free too. Highly recommend you do that. My top 10 flirt tips download, that's free too. Would love for you to check that out. And yeah, I think that's going to do it for me here at Flirt Headquarters. I'm Benjamin. Thank you so much, the Flirt Coach, for tuning in. Thank you to my collaborators, Corey and Joey, and I'll see you very soon in the next episode. Don't forget to flirt.